Rothmann.
The Mark Thompson Show.
How about it for that sexy fool, the commander of presidential history, former KGO talk show host? He's taken his knowledge to podcast land. He's John Rothmann, everyone.
Yay!
Hey, John Rothmann.
Mark and Kim, the special event sounds absolutely marvelous. I want to encourage everybody to sign up, and I'll be fascinated. I just think it's great that you're doing it. It's wonderful.
Thank you, pal. It's a way to meet the audience a little bit and also raise some money for the show. So we're excited about both.
Never been anything like this.
There's never been anything like it. I should tell you, John, before we get to some of the Trump stuff and the flipping of a witness, the dude who was the mercenary chief who staged that mutiny in Russia, he goes down in a plane crash. John Rothmann, that seems like I don't know. I mean, is that just, it was either, do you want to be thrown out of a window or do you want us to crash your plane? You have the choice.
Well, I have
name
not.
is Yevgeny Prigozhin, by the way. That's his name. Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there confirmation now? I know he's on the list, but is there confirmation that he was on the plane?
He's listed as a passenger
Yeah,
that was
I
on
know
this
that.
plane that crashed north of Moscow. So I don't know if he's confirmed, but he's on the passenger list. So
Well, let me assure you, if he's dead, the conspiracy theorists are going to thrive. If he's alive, then Putin missed his mark. That's the way it'll come down.
So, John, tell me about, I'll give you the choice. GOP debate handicap. We will get to both. Okay, so this isn't a choice of one or the other.
I do want to talk about that flip.
Okay, hang on a second. So GOP debate handicapping. We'll put that to the side then. Let's talk about the flip. I mentioned it in the first half hour. Your thoughts on, this is a critical figure in this documents case who is now flipped on Trump.
Yeah, he's in big trouble. And let me assure you, the bigger flip, if it's true, as my friends in Washington tell me, is Mark Meadows. Because if Mark Meadows flips on Donald Trump, he is in big trouble. So there's an interesting caveat to this, because Donald Trump, the multi-billionaire, is the tightest guy I've ever met. He doesn't want to spend his money, not a nickel or a dime. And he's paying the consequences. You've got to pay for silence or support, and he's not doing that. But if his chief of staff, Mark Meadows, flips on him, I can't begin to tell you the trouble he's in Georgia, because that case is so critical. So all I can tell you is, yep, if you're going to hire people, you better pay their fee. And Mark, I just want you to know that if you are sued for something, you're on your own.
Well, and as to your fee, John, of course, in the rich tradition of this show, you get nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah. Now,
No, I get something. I get the joy, by the way, not only of being with you, but also the listener response, which is really quite phenomenal. So,
oh, that's very nice. Yeah, well,
everybody who can go to that virtual event should certainly do it.
Oh, you're very kind. You're a fan favorite for sure. Let me go back to what you just said, though. You mentioned the Georgia case. Meadows is also critical in the J6 case, is he not?
Yes, he is. He's absolutely critical. And so it's a two-way street. If on the January 6th case he is flipped, then Donald Trump really is in trouble, because Mark Meadows is a witness to everything that happened. So if I were Donald Trump, I'd be very worried. Now, he takes an attitude that was really given to him by Roy Cohn, who was Joe McCarthy's lawyer and hitman for years. That is, you never admit that you've done anything wrong. You keep attacking. And that is exactly what he's going to do. So here will be the question, and I'm waiting for this. Will Donald Trump turn on Mark Meadows? Because if, in fact, Meadows is flipped and Donald Trump goes after him, it's going to be something. And remember, there is now a precedent because of the Georgia case where Donald Trump has been forbidden to attack, threaten, cajole, or post items written by others that do any of the aforementioned. This is going to be political drama like we haven't seen in this country in years.
John, what would the flip that you're describing with Trump flipping on Meadows, what would that look like? Because isn't Trump the head of the snake, if you will, or you know what I mean? He's the head of the conspiracy.
If Mark Meadows affirms the fact that Donald Trump conspired on January 6th, supported the insurrection, supported, if you want to not use the word insurrection, you want to use the word riot, supported whatever he supported, Donald Trump is in big trouble because there is an eyewitness when you have a chief of staff.
No, but you said, but what if, but Trump might flip on Meadows. What would that look like is my question.
If he starts attacking Meadows.
I see.
If he, and you know, that is the tradition of Donald Trump. If you cross him, he crosses you. So if Mark Meadows flipped and Mark Meadows testifies against Trump, Trump will most certainly call him the most incompetent chief of staff the White House has ever had. And that will also be interesting because all of this is like a circle. Everybody having guns and everybody shooting each other. And that is exactly what I see happening as everything peels away. By the way, you heard the big news today. Donald Trump's going to do a fundraiser for Rudy Giuliani. It's going to be 1,000. Is it 1,000 or 10,000? Kim, you can check that. A head fundraiser that he is going to host, and he is going to host it. And what will that do? Because if Giuliani flips on Trump, that's another big question.
Well, that's massive, and honestly,
what he can, not with his own money, Mark. Yes. You know, I want to point out to people that your virtual event is modestly priced. A dinner with Rudy Giuliani and Donald Trump is not modestly priced. What is it, $10,000, Ed, or what is it, Kim? You have
Google it.
I'm looking it up. Can Rudy Giuliani do that though? Because aren't there,
$100,000
attorney-client privileges that he has to follow?
He's saying it's $100,000.
No, that's just somebody in the chat. I don't know if that's right. Okay. I'll double check it too. Go ahead.
I just don't think it's as easy for Giuliani to flip because of the regulations regarding his position as a lawyer.
Oh, no. You can certainly flip. I would remind you, John Dean flipped on Richard Nixon. Of course you can flip. There's no question about it. Because what
Trump is indeed hosting a $100,000 a plate dinner for Rudy Giuliani.
What?
You are right in the chat. Thank you. Barry is right.
September 7th at Bedminster Golf Course at the president's facility in New Jersey, in case you wanted to attend. The ticket gets you a round table and a dinner with the former president and Giuliani, both of whom are expected to surrender in Georgia this week.
And how much of that money that Trump raises for Giuliani will be handled with processing fees and other fees before it gets to Giuliani, John? Rudy, I want to give you all of it, but it's very expensive to throw up an event like this, and I just feel as though he may not be getting
Giuliani had pleaded with Donald Trump. He went down and met with Trump and pleaded with him for support, personal support, financial support. Trump has failed to give money, and Trump is notoriously tight. Okay. And all I can tell you is Donald Trump is under siege on a variety of levels. How he keeps his levelness is going to be fascinating. And tonight, although he's not on the stage, he is the debate. He is the issue. And I know that the intention of Chris Christie is to go after him tooth and nail. Oh, here's the invitation.
Yeah.
This is the invitation. Oh, how many seats are you reserving, Mark?
Well, I know. Let me see. At 100,000 apiece,
there's never been anything like this.
Let's see. Invites you to an evening in support of America's mayor, Rudolph Giuliani. September 7th. Yeah.
What chutzpah? I mean, it's chutzpah.
It really is.
Well, I understand. What Donald Trump can now say to Rudy Giuliani is, look, Rudy, I'm helping you. I'm helping you. Yeah. But let me tell you,
maybe the Saudis will show up and buy a bunch of tables. That's usually the way it works. The Saudis, the Omanis, they buy up everything as they sort of buy up our politicians.
Saudi Arabia pays cash.
Exactly. Right. So, Rudy has serious money problems, and I think you make a good point, John, when you sort of suggest that this is a way to maybe chill him out and get him to play ball,
And put money where Rudy needs it, because whatever you think of Rudy Giuliani, He went out there, he defended Donald Trump, he did everything Donald Trump asked to do. And now I want to point out to you, his plane arrived today, or he flew down to Georgia because he has to be at the courthouse. He is being indicted. And just because you're a hero one day doesn't mean you can't be indicted the next day.
Yeah, keep that in mind, Albert. Okay, just because you're a hero one day doesn't mean you can't be indicted the next day.
Albert, thank you.
Yeah. Let me ask you about Senator Bill Cassidy. He said on Sunday that he thinks that former President Trump should exit the 2024 GOP presidential race. He said this is on CNN, so he was on a
I watched it. I heard
major platform. He said, "I think Trump essentially can't win." What were your thoughts on that?
Well, we know from the polling, if the polling is accurate, and I always think of President Landon and President Dewey, who both thought for a moment or two that they might win. I don't count polls, but I do think it's very important to point out that about a third of the American people say they would never vote for Donald Trump. A third say they'll vote for him no matter what. And the rest, I think, who knows? So when I point this out to you, you can really make a case that 2/3 of the American people would oppose a Donald Trump reelection. But Donald Trump has no choice. He has to run. He has to fight back. If he doesn't, then he's cooked. And the whole question of pardon power, if on the January 6th indictment, which is a federal indictment, he is elected as president, he can pardon himself, and he most certainly would. He doesn't have that option in Georgia, but it would be an interesting spectacle. So look, what can you say?
But back to Cassidy for a moment. Did you feel, I mean, leaving aside what seems clear, as you suggested, which is that, if you look at polling, he's an embattled candidate with problems, I would suggest to you, because of our effed up system, that you always defend the Electoral College. You don't defend the Electoral College, but I feel like you're more of an institutionalist than I am. But that's another issue. But what I'm getting at is, because of our system of the Electoral College, Trump can win, John.
No,
he doesn't need to win the. He
because
doesn't need to win the
cannot
popular vote.
carry, Mark. He cannot carry the swing states. He cannot carry Wisconsin. He cannot carry Ohio. He cannot carry the states that he would have to be reelected.
Said the same thing in 2016.
No, in 2016, what we said, and I think I was right, is he shouldn't have carried those states. Hillary Clinton didn't campaign in those states. They simply assumed they were in the
campaign in Wisconsin. That's true. Yes. Okay.
There will be an aggressive campaign. But let me take it one step further. And that is that tonight on that stage, what are the 8 Republicans, assuming Governor Brigham shows up, despite his basketball injury, what are they really doing? They're positioning themselves to the day when Donald Trump is gone. In order to win the nomination, you cannot alienate the 70% of the Republican Party base that love Donald Trump, or at least are willing to vote for him again. In order to win the nomination, you have to keep those people in line. And that is what they are really going to do. And you will hear Mike Pence, for instance, who's very critical of Donald Trump, will talk about the Trump-Pence administration. Mike Pence's tactic is going to be to emphasize what that administration did that appealed to the voters, to appeal to the base. And so what I perceive tonight is a chance for these guys to make a difference in case Trump stumbles. I want to reinforce what you said about Ramaswamy. He is the slimiest, a most horrible prospective candidate for president. The fact that the polls show him now with 10% of Republican support should be shattering for people who want to believe that people are smart. I was fascinated last night on CNN, and I listened to everything. CNN, Fox, the whole 9 yards. I really try MSNBC. Did you hear him make the accusation that there were federal people involved in September 11th? And then he said, oh, no, I was misquoted. I didn't say it. And then the tape was released. And that's exactly what he said.
He does a lot of this where he goes, well, how many federal officers have we ever looked at? How many federal officers were involved and in whatever venue. You could pick January 6th. You could pick, 9/11, whatever. I mean, this guy he serves up BS like a short order chef, but he does it with great confidence. He's very well spoken, and he is so self-assured, again, self-confident, that people respond to that, John. That
They do.
He'd be a great talk show host, probably.
And that's what he's going to try to do tonight.
Yeah, and so he always returns to I didn't mean to interrupt, but just last thing, he returns to this refrain. You're going to hear it tonight. I'm data-driven. Look, I'm fact-driven. He'll start with that, and you'll go, "Oh, I'm fact-driven. That sounds good. Data-driven. That sounds right." And look, he's a rich guy who's done well. Let's hear what he has to say. So please go ahead.
On Ukraine, on the Middle East, on a whole host of domestic issues, this guy is a disaster. And I hope the Republican Party wakes up. We've seen this before. Look at Robert Kennedy Jr., who's still scoring at about 20%, who is also a wackadoodle. And it's too bad because when you have the ability to communicate or you have a great name, you want to do it responsibly. And I would point out to you on the Mark Thompson program, when great names appear, they do it responsible.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Well, we try to call people out on it, but I'm not a flamethrower, so I just try to get into a conversation with people on when something sounds a little fishy to me. But I think the problem for the Republicans on that debate stage tonight is that, as you sort of suggested, some of them are water carriers for Trump. Vivek would be one of them. And some of them are flamethrowers. There are not a lot of them, but there's one big one, and I mean literally big one, and that's Christie, man. He's a wrecking ball, and he will love it. And even though Trump is not on the stage, he will go after him, and he'll go after those who defended him. He'll go after Vivek. I mean, I think Chris Christie is not afraid of any of these guys. He's more media savvy than any of them. Yeah.
But I have a question for you, and it's for the listeners. And it's a question I don't have an answer for. Will more people listen to the Republican so-called debate? It's not a debate. It's a cattle show. You understand that. I can explain the difference between a debate and a cattle show. Or will they be listening to Donald Trump's interview with Tucker Carlson? Which of those broadcasts will have the higher listenership? And that's going to be let me also
that's a good question. Yeah.
That tomorrow night in prime time, Donald Trump is going to surrender in Georgia. So all of the networks are going to cover it. And yes, some of it is going to be broadcast. You pointed that out earlier, because in Georgia, there's no prohibition. There is a federal prohibition in federal courts, but not in Georgia courts. So who's going to outdraw? It's going to be fascinating.
I love a primetime surrender to justice, don't you? I mean, I think that's if you're gonna turn yourself in, you want to do it in prime time.
There's never been anything like this.
Did you hear him say it? He's proud that he's going to be indicted.
Well, he's the most,
I think I'm the most honest human being, perhaps, that God ever created.
Yeah, come on, John. When you have that kind of honesty, you want to get it out there in prime time.
That's why I listen to the Mark Thompson.
Hey, John. I had one last question for you. And first, you've got me kind of thinking about what will outdraw what. Softball questions that will come from Tucker Carlson there's already pre-taped this with Trump versus the kind of, as you say, it's sort of a Hollywood Squares. I think they should put them in squares. Yeah, I mean, it is a game show. Put them in squares and let's do it like Hollywood Squares style. You put the candidates in, everybody's got a square, and they have to answer questions.
Can I just clarify this?
It's not a debate. It's a television show.
I talked about it on my podcast this morning. There is no debate. A debate is when two people square off on a particular issue. And I used the story. Barry Goldwater told me that he and John F. Kennedy had agreed that if they ran against each other in '64, that they would campaign from Air Force One, that they would land in each city and talk about the great issues of the day, one issue at a time in each city: Vietnam, Social Security, civil rights, crime. What a tremendous debate or discussion that would have been. This is not a debate. This is a cattle show. You know what we're really looking for tonight? Who makes a mistake? Who makes a mistake or who scores a point? That's what we're going to be listening for. And may I tell you, I love entertainment. Now, here's my problem. I have a paradox. What am I going to watch? Am I going to watch Trump and Tucker Carlson? Or am I going to watch these 8 Republicans on the stage. And may I make one other point? If you make a list of the issues, and you know me, I'm list oriented. I make a list of the issues. These Republican candidates all fundamentally agree on every issue. They're not debating issues. They're talking about their own personality. By the way, don't underestimate Nikki Haley. This is her shot. She's really going to try to make an impression. So
I think you can underestimate. I think you can underestimate Nikki Haley without any fear that you're making a mistake. I'm sorry, John. She doesn't have any chance except to be Secretary of State in the next administration if it's GOP.
Or vice president. Because I want to point out to you, you talked about Vivek being a vice president. Not a chance. But there is a chance for somebody like Nikki Haley, a woman from South Carolina.
That's the key. From South Carolina. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, but let me ask you a question, because I trust your impeccable judgment.
Well, thank you, John. I think we should ruminate on that for a moment. Go ahead.
What are you going to watch tonight? Donald Trump or the Republican cattle call?
Well, I will tell you what you will find with the Republican cattle call. Notwithstanding your curiosity, notwithstanding your anticipation, I believe you'll ultimately be disappointed. I think you'll be frustrated that there isn't sort of the bonfire there that was expected, the rhetorical bonfire. I just think it's going to be on the boring side. So then you'll flip over to Tucker, see what he's doing with Trump, and I think you'll be kind of disappointed there too. I think both things are going to disappoint, but of the two disappointing show options, I guess I'd watch the debate because at least that's live. And as you say, there might be a misstep or two and maybe even some sparks flying with Christie involved.
That's my point. I really think it's going to be interesting, but it is a curious thing. And the fact that they have decided that Donald Trump and Tucker Carlson is a team, if you will, to try to preempt what the Republicans are doing. Ronna Romney McDaniel, the chair of the Republican Party, must be horrified. And yet she has to be careful. Because
I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No,
because you don't want
to alienate Donald Trump and his base.
Right. You don't want to antagonize the leader. That's what I thought you were saying. So the one thing I have a question for you.
Sure.
What is the one thing that Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump have absolutely 100% in common? You know, Tucker said that he hates Donald Trump. He loathes him. He thinks he's right. We know that because of communications that we have now all seen in various subpoenaed materials. But what is the one thing that they share? Total self-interest.
Well,
that's right. They are only in it for self-interest.
It's all about self-promotion.
Yes.
And that's what they're both doing. And
so they're both using each other, right, John?
Of course. Of course.
Yeah.
And may I tell you, there's nothing wrong with people using each other.
You're telling me I'm using you right now.
As long as you know what they're doing. Let me tell you, Mark, I don't mind being exploited by the tremendous popularity of the Mark Thompson program.
Oh, my
gosh.
And
you don't mind promoting my podcast, Around the Political World with John Rothman.
It's fantastic.
I love it. I love it.
Let's point out,
mutual exploitation.
There can be a positive and a negative. And the exploitation between Carlson and Trump, to me, is something that is quite negative and unfortunate. And by the way, did you notice that this is another payback? Because it is Fox that let their star, Tucker Carlson, go. And now he's going to give it back to them in spades.
Great point. That really is a great point. Find him in the podcast community Around the Political World with John Rothman. You find him here on Wednesdays. Love your insights. Can't wait to talk to you more as the political season heats up. Thank you, John Rothman, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, John. Bye-bye. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.